if they're comfortable and they're content, like where they're at, is that really the best person for that position? Are they really going to be driving your business? Like, we don't have anyone on our team who is task oriented. Everyone has a goal and they're always moving the needle in the business. It's always about growth.
Welcome to the Raquel Show. This show is for entrepreneurs who want to play bigger in business and in life. And today I have a very special guest. I've known this lady for like 13 years, maybe since 2008. And some of you may know her and some of you may not know her. And some of you may wish you had somebody like her in your life because I hear it all the time. I wish I had Jenny. She started with me as an assistant back in 2008 and has been helping me with all kinds of things for 13 years. And we went into REOs, we went into recruiting, we went into calendar, we went into events, we went into retreats. There's nothing that I cannot build without this woman. And I want to welcome to the show, Jenny Weber.
Hi. Oh my gosh. The intro is long because there's been a lot, right?
Yeah. And I forgot to say, like, she's been with me through a birth of a child, Rex did, right? She's been with me through a big accident, like breaking my ankle. And she's been with me on losing team members, right? She's been through it all. So I'm excited to interview her today because there's so much to a partnership. And there's so much to working with team members. There's so much to leading people together. And so first question for you, Jenny, is partnerships are not always easy. Mm-hmm. What do you think in your eyes have been the keys to our partnership as you look back through this crazy journey?
Yeah, I think, this is something that I get asked a lot is, we definitely approach our relationship differently than I would say a lot of CEOs and assistants. And something I'm really proud of is that we have, over the span of a decade, we have been really mindful of really treating it like it is a marriage, and like we've joked recently that like we're like work wives, right? But it's the reality, it takes a lot of work. As you mentioned before, we've gone through a lot, not even in business, but in life, there's been a lot of ups and downs. There's been a lot of good times. There's been a lot of crazy times. And it's just knowing that you have that person, that support through all of it, So I think that has been one of the biggest factors in our relationship is that we're willing to put in the work. We're willing to have those open conversations. We're willing to be vulnerable with each other. And that is really, at the end of the day, like what makes it work. We can lean on each other. So I would definitely say that has been the biggest factor in where we're at today.
I love that you said it's sort of like a marriage, because sometimes when people work in an environment, they don't always think like it's a marriage. And I can tell you that it is like a marriage. And she's probably my second longest after Brad. And it's crazy to even think that has been in my world and been in my life for as long as almost Brad. Like Brad is 17 years and Jenny's 13 years. There's not a huge difference between the two, right? If you really think of it. And I think that she probably knows me a little bit better because I probably during the day spend a ton of time making decisions and crazy decisions versus like the leisure and the logistics of a household.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's important to like the person that you're spending that amount of time with, So I think for you and I, again, like just having that vulnerability between the two of us and growing together. Obviously, I wouldn't be here today if I was still the person that I was back in 2008 when we first met. And I wouldn't stay with you today if like you weren't also growing, So it's that we just have this mindset together that we always want to grow. We always want to do the same things. Our values are very much the same. That is, again, like that back and forth between the both of us for always growing each other. You're always helping me grow. I'm always helping you grow. We're always leveling each other up. And that is just something that, you have to do in situations where you're going to be working together and building to the level that we build.
Yeah. Oftentimes I get asked, I wish I had a Jenny Weber. Where do I find a Jenny Weber? And as much as I would love to say that, that might be the answer to their success or their next level of growth, I think there's a big understanding of like this zigzag and balance of like the visionary and an integrator, right? How have you been able to adopt or adapt to being an integrator to a person that has so many ideas, especially for those that are listening? Because I know we've got some people that are on the support side that support a CEO that has millions of ideas. And I can think even within our personal private clients, we have all those people that listen.
Yeah. I would definitely say it's knowing that you have a big vision, big vision. And I never want to be the person who in any way keeps us from growing, because because I am an integrator, my personality is that, change can be not difficult. I wouldn't want to say difficult, because we definitely go through a lot of change, but I have this moment of hesitation because I just have this analytical brain that is also the reason why we're able to implement and, really build. But at the same time, like, it's making it so that when you come to me with those big, crazy ideas, that I give you the space and the grace to just throw it at me, because I don't ever want there to be that friction for you. I think that's one of the biggest things. And we've been hearing that a lot lately, is between like a CEO and an integrator, is like never having any kind of friction there. Like, you need to have the freedom to dump out those crazy ideas so that I can take those and start to implement them. I can help build them out. So I think that has been something that we've always been really good at. And in my role, I would say something that has definitely helped, and maybe will help anyone who's in that operations world, is adaptability. I always say, like, adaptability is like one of my strengths. We've gone through a lot and things are constantly changing, and they change fast. But I'm always adaptable to anything, even if internally I'm like, whew, okay, like, breathe, like that's a lot of change going on. It's just, you have to be quick, because we have really big things that we're trying to build, and we have a lot of people that we're trying to impact. And so there's no space for that hesitation. There's no space for causing any of that friction. And just having that mindset is something that makes our world just grow even bigger.
I love that you said all of that, because I do believe that adaptability and probably flexibility, especially when you're in the ops or support role, that doesn't always come very easy. People often get so used to a checklist, stability, routines, right? And when things get thrown at them, whether it's a left or right curveball of like, hey, we're going in a different direction, it can sometimes frustrate the support team. So how have you, and you obviously oversee several of our team members, how have you been able to instill that in the other ops and support people that we have today?
I would say, and one of the biggest things that I've learned from you inside of that is, before there are any changes, because you can have that where you give things to team members and they pour their heart into it, right? And then it's like, we're pivoting. But I think the biggest thing behind that is, like, we're always really good at casting the vision behind it first, right? So, like, before there's a big change, before there's even small changes, it's always like, here's the vision, here's why we're doing this. And you have to get that buy-in from your people. You have to bring them along in that journey so that they know ultimately where you're headed. And in doing that also, like, that really helps them look at what they're doing as not just a task. Like, we're not like a task team like that. It's not what we do. Everything that we do has a purpose behind it, whether it be an email that we're creating, like something small like that. It makes a world of difference. And we're always thinking about the experience for our people. So just knowing what the ultimate vision is, if that task or that project or whatever it is, or that new system that we're looking to look into, if it's not ultimately going to create the biggest impact for our world and the people around us, then our team has no problem like saying, this isn't working. This is the direction that we want to go. And I feel like that is something that is extremely helpful for people in the ops position. And it really empowers them also to want to be a part of, let's get rid of this sooner, giving their feedback. This isn't working. Maybe we should go this direction. So I would definitely say that that's something that is going to make the biggest difference when you have those ops people.
How have you been able to empower, or number one, like how have you been able to receive like the freedom to give feedback even to your CEO? Because sometimes I think that's hard for ops and support people to do, that it's always one way, whatever the CEO goes,
Mhm.
always goes. But like, have you been able to strategically give like constructive criticism back to your CEO
Mhm.
or to the visionary? And then how have you been able to train our other team members to do the same for you?
Yeah. I would say it's always value driven. And you can tell too, if there's a direction that you want to go and I might see something differently, our team members might see something differently because they're inside it. So our conversations and everything with the team, like we're always very open to like, we want your feedback. Like, what are you guys seeing? You guys are the experts. This is your role. We want you to own it. So if you see something, or if we're moving you in a direction that ultimately you guys think, hey, we should be doing this, or we should be moving here instead, let us know, because we're moving so fast. And sometimes we don't see all of the insights. Sometimes we don't see the responses that come back. Sometimes our team members are so inside of their roles and they own it that they really are the experts inside of that. So we're always really big on, if you see something that needs to change, I think the biggest thing is give us solutions to it. There's a difference between, I don't think we should do that. That's not my role. Or, hey, what if we did this instead? That's the biggest thing, always being solutions driven. And I think that's something that we've just instilled in our team. And honestly, we don't see a lot of, I don't want to do that. Like, we don't have that in our world. Our team is so good and everyone's just so big on like just providing the biggest value that they're so solutions driven. But yeah, I know a lot of teams probably still see that to this day, but you just got to make sure your team is on the same track.
You being in the world that you live in, what do you think makes a successful integrator, director of ops, chief operating officer, supportive role in an organization? And if you were hiring somebody today for that role, what would they have to have?
I would probably say like always earning your role is a big one. I didn't get here today because Raquel handed it to me. I didn't get here today because I didn't always grow myself, or I didn't always try to level up, or I didn't try to figure things out for myself, or I didn't ask questions. So I think that's something that is really helpful for anyone in my role, is constantly earning it. Like, I want to build really big things with you, and I wouldn't be here today if I wasn't constantly showing you that I should be in this seat. So that would be my biggest feedback to anyone in that role, is constantly earning it and constantly leveling up your team, constantly leveling up your leadership, constantly leveling up everyone around you. There's no room for scarcity.
One of the things that I see often as I have been able to lead so many different teams, right? And open up so many different like businesses and see also even in our clients, is sometimes we hold on to a role because maybe we're afraid, especially in the support role where there's high S's in that DISC role, right? Or there's high C's, that if they give it up and they grow, that maybe their job might be taken away, or they don't want to teach all the talent that they have to their other team members because maybe their job might go away. How do you teach our team members, or what have you learned through the years with that?
Yeah. No, like I would love to find someone to take over my role so that I can grow into the next one. And that's always been my mindset, is there's so much opportunity inside of our world. And if I come across someone who, I want to find someone, right, who can take over what I do today. I want to find someone who wants to move up from what they're doing. Like, we're constantly just growing, and there's no room for that kind of scarcity mindset inside of our world. I always want to move up. Our team members always want to move up, and them knowing that that is a possibility is something that we're constantly speaking to them about. Like, we're constantly letting them know, like, hey, where do you guys ultimately want to go? Every time we do a check-in, When we do our quarterly check-ins with our team, that is always a question we ask, like, where do you ultimately want to go? Like, is there anywhere in your current position that you are not feeling fulfilled? Is there something that you love doing? Or is there something that you want to learn? Maybe you don't even know if you love it yet. Like, what is something that you want to learn? Like, how can we help you so that you can move into that next position or whatever it is? And just knowing that, I think, again, like that just builds this amazing culture of people who are just so damn driven. Like, I love our team, and like they're always willing to put themselves out there. They're always willing to learn. And it's because we give them that space.
I love that. And I think what's really important as you were saying that, and I was like processing what you were saying, is that sometimes not only even in the support side of things in the business, that people are afraid to kind of let go and teach somebody else their skill set because they might be able to level up and they might, take on the next role. But even on the CEO visionary side, they're sometimes even afraid to let go because they're like, well, what if, Jenny leaves you? Or what if your right-hand person leaves you? Like, what would you do? What do you say to those that like have that fear in their organization?
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like if you put a ceiling, like talented people aren't going to stay in your world. So, I mean, that's really it. If you put a ceiling on anyone around you, they're going to look for it elsewhere, especially talented people. That's a really good marker for the people around you. Like, if they're comfortable and they're content, like where they're at, is that really the best person for that position? Are they really going to be driving your business? Like, we don't have anyone on our team who is task oriented. Like, they all have markers. They all have, like, everyone, it has a goal and they're always moving the needle in the business. It's always about growth. Maybe some teams are set up differently, but I would definitely say like that is something that needs to be looked at internally, because you always want people on your team who want that next opportunity, who are also hungry for it and want to earn it. So that is definitely something that needs to be looked at.
Thank you for saying that. And one of the things that I get asked often from people that we coach, private clients, is, has Jenny ever thought about, being a visionary or the CEO or going out on her own and, creating something else on her own? If you haven't, how does one stay fulfilled? Right. And I know that we have some clients that I know for sure, without a shadow of a doubt, that they would love and continue to be like, love the role that they're in today as an integrator, as a CEO, because that's just who they are.
Yeah. It's interesting because I feel like where I am today, I'm more in a space today than ever before where there's a lot more flexibility in my day-to-day. It's a lot more fluid than it once was. And I find myself in a position where I'm so out of the daily task and I'm more inside of that role, and it's so uncomfortable. And I'm like, I know a lot of times at the end of the day, I'm like, Raquel, like I get asked so many questions. Like, I'm like, I can't answer another question. Like, it's just, and it's not a bad thing. It's just, it's good. Like it just, I have so many people that I am, helping create this world. And I'm in this place now where like, I feel like Raquel, we used to joke when Raquel would come into the office that she was like the mama, right? And like all the puppies would run to the mama, and like Raquel, and like she would get so many questions in a day. And I'm like, oh, I feel you. I feel that like I'm like, my brain is fried, but it's good. Like, it's such a good place to be. Like, I'm so grateful for where I am today, but it's just this new muscle that I have to build. And it's really leveling up in, my delegation. It's really leveling up in how I like communicate with the team, how I have them communicate with me. Like, we have a process for how the team asks questions, just because we just move so fast and I never want to bottleneck anything. So it's like, how can I get this to the team faster? How can I, get things out? How can I review projects faster? And also so that the team doesn't need me. Like, things run, and a lot of things in our role today, I will say, and I'm super proud of, run without me even needing to look at it on a day-to-day, which has given me this flexibility that I now have. So I have a lot of questions, but I also do have a lot of flexibility, and it's just tightening that up. So it's been fun to see that transition, definitely.
You said a lot of things in that answer. And my question to you is, if somebody had to nail the integrator role, the director of ops role, what are some of the key things that they would have to be so skilled at? You named a few, like delegation, you named like time, right? And I think over time, like it's almost second nature to you. But if you were hiring your replacement today, what are the things that you know for sure they needed to nail because that would make or break them as a rock star?
Yeah, I would say like my biggest thing, and Raquel knows this, is being resourceful. That is my number one thing. Like the people around me, and I'm sure with Raquel too, but like I have to have people around me who are resourceful. Like they're going to look for the answer. They're going to dig for the answer, and they're going to do it fast because again, if they do need something, if they're not finding something, they'll come to me. But I know that they are always looking for the answer first, or at least when they do come to me, if they don't have the answer, if they can find it, they have a solution, or they have, this is what I found. Am I on the right track? So I think that for me is the biggest thing inside of my world, is just being surrounded by people who are always going to be looking for the answers. Because again, I know I've said this, is we just move so fast today that it's, we can't be everywhere at once. And so the people around us definitely need to be able to look for those answers or find the solutions so that they can build with us.
As you have a very important role because you're a large part of what we grow today, and most integrators and COOs are that for the CEO. How do you, because a CEO or a visionary has so many ideas, millions of ideas, how do you prioritize, put them in buckets to figure out what you execute on? Because I think this is like something that a lot of the assistants or executive assistants or even CEOs and integrators deal with today.
Yeah. For me, it's always what is like, we're always talking growth. We're always talking revenue. Like that inside of our business is always, it's a business, right? Like it has to run. We always have to be moving the needle in our business. That's the reality. So like those things are always priority, like those always are something that we want to look at first. And a lot of times too, they can be the things that take up a lot of the time. Those could be some of the larger projects, not always, but so it's so important to really understand and be able to look at different things and how am I going to chunk this down? Who can I delegate this to? What parts do I need to delegate to? And also like, how quickly do I need to be on top of accountability? So that is definitely something that's really big. And just having like a really keen eye and being able to be a project manager inside of that, because there are a lot of moving parts, and it's really having that team behind you of like, who can I delegate this to? How quickly can they do it? What does their current like workload look like? And then you're managing the results. That is always something that is super helpful inside of all of that, because there are a lot of things. And then obviously, sometimes there's those one-offs that are fun. We can take that part out.
So let's talk about accountability. I think a lot of like, whether it's rainmakers or whether it's people in an organization, whether you're growing a business, definitely scaling a business, accountability is something that does not go away. Deadlines do not go away to move the needle in a business to whatever the goal is, whatever the mission is. How do you hold people accountable, or what would you say are the most effective things people should consider when it comes to great accountability and not so great accountability?
Yeah. Well, first off, I would say like it starts from hiring, right? Like we have an amazing team. And at the end of the day, like I know when I give them something, they're working on it. And not only are they working on it, but they know their role. They know at the end of the day where the business is headed. And I know that they are going to drive it in the direction it needs to go. So like I have trust with my team. So that I would definitely say is the number one thing. And then just knowing like the different skill sets our team has, like I know, and sometimes I'll give a project to someone, especially when they're newer, and just see like, okay, let's see how they do with this. Like for example, we had someone on our team before where we wanted them to possibly be someone that helped us inside the events world. So we gave them a little project and then we watched how they executed on it, how quickly they were, how well it came back to us. Did it come back to us at a 2? Did it come back to us at an 8? And then from there, we can really decide, like, ultimately, is this where they want to be? Is this something that they executed on? And sometimes, like, not everyone's going to do everything, not everyone's going to do well at everything. Not everyone loves to do every task. And that's also something that we ask, like, what do you love? What do you dislike? We want to make sure that our people they're doing work and they're in roles that they love. And I mean, we all have things that we have to do, even you and I, at the end of the day, but holding them accountable and really making sure we're understanding like where their strengths are and putting them inside of that world is ultimately like what definitely helps with making things move faster.
Yeah, I love all of that. And one of the things that I get asked quite often, believe it or not, in a lot of our coaching calls is how do you handle, especially us being in the real estate world or even coming from the real estate world, it can be 24/7. How do you separate or how do you put up boundaries when it comes to work, life, integration, balance, whatever you want to call it?
Yeah. I've always been really good at that. I've always been really good with boundaries. It's just something that has come naturally. And I think it's just honesty, like being very open with it. And it's not just that, I can't do that, or I've got to do this. I have other things personally. It's knowing that at the end of the day, like I need that time to refuel my bucket, be it doing whatever I'm doing in my personal life. I need that time so that I can show up and be the best version of myself on Monday morning or whenever it is, So I think that is just something that's really important to me. That is actually a value of mine. And that. And again, that is just us having that open dialogue and open conversation as far as like what my boundaries are. And of course, there are times that, things come up. There are times where we have launches or we have projects that are going to require that we put in more time. And that's just something that happens. But also like I have that grace from you and you understand that, okay, like we have this big project. Like I want to make sure that, Raquel has time to get her energy back. Jenny has time to get her energy back in whatever way serves us best. But that is all part of boundaries, and I think another thing between you and I and something in our world is like health and mindset is all something extremely important to us. So, if I know you're going through a crazy week, or if, I've got like a ton on my plate or whatever it is, like we know, and we always do check-ins with each other, like, hey, like maybe step away, let's change your environment, take some time. So it's just, at the end of the day, it's just knowing what each other's values are and giving us that grace and that space so that, again, like we can show up as our best version of ourselves.
Yeah. And let me tell you that for those that are listening, it didn't always happen that way. I had to grow too. There were deadlines, even sometimes where we worked in an organization and I was like the vice president and somebody else was the CEO, and there was still deadlines no matter what. But I think this has developed and the relationship has developed over time that we've really honored boundaries like there's nobody's business. Like I have never, like even in our real estate, I think even in like the REO days, right? It's rare that I could count on my hands that like Jenny worked a weekend. Yeah. As busy and as crazy it was. Like there was offers all the time and demanding banks, but I knew that like I would burn this woman out or any of our employees out if I did that to them, unless it was required for their job role and it was an expectation. And I think sometimes if you have that expectation in it and it bends a certain way, you got to talk about it. You got to talk about it because there's organizations today that, don't talk about it. And then they have this feeling that they're carrying and it's almost like resentment.
Absolutely. And we've been, the both of us, we've been in situations, we've been in different phases of our business where we were just burning ourselves out, and we did it for a while. And we were in this space of, we're growing, this is new, like this is what's required. And then maybe a year and a half, we really had to have like a deep look at where we were. And it's like, is this truly making us happy? Is this really in alignment with our values? Like we're burnt out, and having that look inside of like where we both are, doing that check-in with each other. And ultimately, we decided, no, this isn't what we want to be doing. But at the same time, like we learned so much from that. And, one of the biggest things I would say inside of that is we really did learn like what our boundaries are, and knowing what we don't want our business to look like, what we don't want our lives to look like. And now it's like we stick to that, and we also make it where it's almost a requirement for our team to look at that as well. Like if we know our team member is like a little bit off, or if like we just are sensing something, we are so mindful of like reaching out to them and like, hey, like, is everything okay? Are you good? Like, I'm seeing this. I just want to make sure. Like, it's so important. And like the people around you are going to have so much more like love and respect, and they're going to take away so much more from your team and want to show up so much better for your team if you give them that grace.
Yeah, you brought up a good point, which I think is something that I would love to address, is how do you, or with our team members, is how do you mix and show, or is it bad to mix, the business, the career growth, and, the personal side? Like, where's the boundaries there? Because sometimes people grow, and we've seen it too, where they become friends, and then it goes out the window, and people are entitled all of a sudden to because they're friends. And so they use that friendship card into the organization almost as entitlement.
Yeah. I mean, we've definitely seen that. I haven't had too much with that. I mean, I've had family on the team, and, I've had friends on the team. The thing is, like, when they come in, like, I have a really high standard. You have a really high standard, and that is always set at the forefront. Like, they know going into it, like what our standards are. And so them knowing that and us being very loud about that, there really has never been any space of like, well, it just doesn't happen. Like there's no room for it. There's no time for it. So like, fortunately, because we've set that expectation, like it's been something that we haven't had too many issues with. But again, like it's just letting them know, like, this is what our team expects. We move really fast. And I think that's one of the first, that's actually a question that we ask a lot during interviews is, we do move really fast. And, sometimes there's going to be a lot thrown at you. We're going to ask you to go in different directions. How do you handle pressure? And we're always very honest about it. And we always say, like, if we want this to work, we want them to be happy, we want to be happy. Again, it's a relationship. So just having that honesty up front, you kind of filter out all of that before it even becomes an issue.
Yeah. I think it's a lot of it has to do with like a zigzag, a yin and yang, right? Relationship when it comes to whether you're learning somebody new, how they handle, how they deal with things. Often I get asked, like, do you know about like Jenny's personal life? And like, as a boss, like how much should you know about it, or vice versa, right? Do you guys have a relationship outside of like the work stuff? And what do you say to that? And then I have obviously some thoughts around, for some of the CEOs that are dealing with that right now.
Yeah. For me, like, you're my sister, you're my friend, like you're my family. And like, I want to share those things with you. I want you to be a part of my life. And, if for me, again, and it's different for everyone, like that is, I guess that goes back to boundaries, but like for you and I, like, that is really important to me. My personal stuff is really important to me. So I want you to be a part of that. And for any job I have, or for any role that I had, or for anyone that I ever worked with, like that would be something that I would want to be integrated into. It's business and it's life. Like I spend so much, like you said before, like I'm one of the longest relationships you've ever had. And sometimes, and a lot of times we travel a lot together. I am your companion.
Over Brad. Which he like is not a fan of, but he understands and knows.
Yeah. So can you imagine if like we just talk business all the time? Like that wouldn't be fun. Like another value, having fun. And for some people that might not be a thing, but for you and I, like it is. And at the same time, I never take advantage of that. That's just something that you and I have, that's been part of our relationship. And, for anyone that ever worked under us, like I would hope the same thing. And if I did start to see that maybe there was some advantage being taken, then ultimately I was like, hey, this is going to work. Like, I love you as a friend. Let me help you find your next opportunity, wherever that might be. Like, maybe this just isn't, maybe should be more of a friendship. So,
Yeah.
and that's okay.
I do think that it's really important that you establish, and what we've been able to establish over the years is not only the boundaries, but the rituals. Like there is a time and place for everything. So we do have certain things within our organization and in our businesses set up where it's like, okay, we are talking business. And then like outside of that, we're having the funnest time of our lives, right? Yeah. Like we understand, like in certain moments, like our meeting, we're not talking about what happened, right? We are talking about like making decisions. Here's all the options. And I think sometimes in organizations that I see is that gets mixed and people don't know what they're coming to the table for. Yeah. But I think it's very clear between you and I that like, if we're going to make decisions, it's a meeting. And if it's outside of that, and we're going to go out to eat at the most beautiful restaurant and have the best desserts, we're talking about like life, right? Like we may like say a few things of a meeting of a day, but other than that, like we're talking about like goals, dreams, whatever.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, because at the end of the day, like, I mean, yeah, it's fun to have a fun conversation all the time, but I would start to have resentment if like, that's all it ever was. Because this is also my career. Like I have things I want to do. I have things I want to build too. And so at the end of the day, like if it was just fun, I would start to feel stagnant. Right. Yeah. And so it's just like, it's that back and forth and just knowing like, ultimately, like it's business and life. Right. And knowing when the time is right to like be in that mindset, whether it be business, whether it be life, fun. I remember in Turks, when we did the retreat in Turks, it was a beautiful and intense week with these amazing women. And we gave our heart into it. And then the next day when it was over, we went and we jumped off a ship. And I remember like, we both jumped off together and you're just like, just another Friday, like, like that. And that is that, we were on and we were like in it and we were like working for that week. Right. And then we had fun after. So it's just knowing the timing and just knowing like what you truly need to be driving. So yeah, it's been fun. We always have fun though.
Yes. So speaking of fun, what have been some of like your career or your highlights?
Yeah. And it's so funny because we were just talking about this morning because we just got off our first Play Bigger Women's event. And we were recapping everything. And I was like, that was definitely one of those highlights for me. Like we've done a ton of things. And there are a handful of things for me that just will always stick with me. And they're always the things that when I look back at the end of the day, I'm like, damn, we impacted so many people. So I would definitely say like our women's event this last weekend was definitely one of them. And it's also something that the timing was just right. We tried to do it back in 2020 and then, obviously with everything, it didn't happen. And so it's been a long time coming and it was so beautiful. It was so beautiful. All the feedback we're getting back from it has just been amazing. And to see the woman walk away and have a community is just something that, is unforgettable, and then I would say definitely Turks was another one. Yeah. I mean, Turks was something else, just the best. But again, like, it's not just because we were in this beautiful space. Raquel and I say all the time, like we could have been anywhere. Like it was the people, it was what we were able to create with the people there, with the team there at the end of the day. So, and that has been one of our driving factors is like, what experience are we creating for the people around us, for our clients? And how are we providing value? Like, how are we impacting them? That's our biggest thing at the end of the day.
I love it. So what's next for Jenny? What are you most excited about?
Well, being in this post event right now, I'm just excited to really like look at the next year. That was a big thing for us this year was like, we definitely wanted to do events for our clients and for our community. And now it's something we'll probably download on is like, what do we want this next year to look like? That's something that we've been really good at is, at one point in our careers, I feel like we would have this like 5-year vision, and I feel like we've condensed that because again, like we are moving really fast, and we do like to pivot. We do like to look at things and say, like, is this ultimately where we want to be? Maybe we want to do this instead. And I love that we have that back and forth of like, what do we want to beta? Like, I love that. And we've done it a lot. So I'm just excited for, the rest of this year. And I'm really, really excited, honestly, for everything that we're going to be creating in 2023. I think it's going to be a huge, huge year for us. And the team behind us has grown so much. I'm excited just to see where they're going to be next year too.
I couldn't have picked a better person than Jenny Weber. You were such a rock star. You are the yin to my yang. Like I ever said, she is really the real Raquel. I'm sure she's heard that many, many times. And like I said, where can people connect with you?
Instagram. We can probably drop it. I'm like, I don't even know what it is.
We'll drop it in the show notes.
Yeah.
If you want to follow Jenny, I know it is something Weber. Something. I just know that she's on my phone.
Jenny Weber or something. Yeah.
And as we wrap up, there's always one question that I ask every single guest on our show is, what does Jenny do to play bigger in business and in life?
Ooh, I'm sure everyone says this, right? They're like, oh, we knew you were going to ask that. So for me, I would say, and this is just probably more personal, and in my life, it's health for me. Like, health is number one. It's my number one priority above everything else. I just believe, if you take care of yourself, if you, take care of your mindset, you can show up bigger for the people around you. And it's something that, I always preach. So that would be my biggest thing, is just taking care of myself is what allows me to show up every day. So, yeah.
Well, Jenny, I cannot believe we did an episode for the Raquel Show. I want to thank you not only for being on our show today, but being a part of my life and being my partner in crime. I always tell you that there is nothing that we cannot create. There is nothing that we cannot build. And I am so beyond excited and honored that I've gotten to share this massive, crazy, ridiculous journey, but fun with you. I appreciate you. And I appreciate how you show up, how you lead our team. And of course, I cannot wait to keep playing bigger with you.
Yay. Awesome. Thanks, Raquel.